Good morning you guys, it's Karen and today I'm here to talk about my experience with Topiramate. Topiramate is a drug, it's actually an anti-epilepsy drug, an anti-seizure drug, but I was on it for cervicogenic headaches / migraines. I have done a video on my migraines, my headaches, because I have sometimes migraines, sometimes cervicogenic headaches, but I have headaches pretty much daily and have had for 10-15 years. And I've already done a video on that and my coping mechanisms, so the things that work for me. But coping mechanisms mean that obviously I have yet to find a cure, and my life is hugely impacted by it because I have a headache most days. And I was trying to explain to my husband that I have a headache sometimes without the pain, which he was like, how? I don't understand how. And I was like, because like if you're getting a migraine, you might feel sick and you might have noise sensitivity and light sensitivity and a kind of foggy brain. I sometimes get all of that and have that for a couple of days before I get the actual headache pain. And I've been fighting this for years, and the things it stops me doing is it stops me getting potentially a job, part-time, full-time, whatever, which would help us to be able to consider moving house. It stops me doing all of the videos that I would love to do for you guys. I currently put videos up on a Tuesday and Saturday on my beauty channel, and then very occasional videos on Mrs. Ginger and her dog. I'm still in the process of trying to find something that gives me a good quality of life. Today I'm really lucky because my head is feeling pretty clear. Right now my head is clear. I don't have noise sensitivity. I don't have anything. I've just taken my codeine. I told you I take codeine. I've taken paracetamol. I've taken turmeric. I've taken all the things I take. And today it's working at this moment. It is currently 11 AM. It could be, it's normally like come 2-3 o'clock, I start to feel really, really awful and I can't look at a screen. I can't concentrate on anything. But I do have physio tomorrow because last week was a particularly bad week with headaches. And I think that's because I gave up the Topiramate. But I wanted to come and talk to you about the Topiramate, Topamax, whatever you know it as, in case you were thinking about going on it, in case you're on it and are worried about side effects. I think it really helps to find somebody else that's got the same symptoms or that's really experienced it, rather than just reading the leaflet. I don't think the leaflet is more of a legal document. There's things that you have to know, but there might be a very small chance of you getting it, and you don't know what is that really like. Is it just, you know, if it says nausea, do you feel a little bit nauseous, or are you like feeling so sick you can't eat, that kind of thing. So I hope this will be beneficial to you, and I hope it might help some people decide whether or not they want to try this medication for headaches and migraines. On my other video, I've explained that I get cervicogenic headaches mostly, so it comes from my neck. It's a particular place in my neck, and my hope is that eventually I will get a nerve block injected into that. But we'll see. I've now got another GP appointment in 3 weeks. I have to see a particular GP because she knows my history, and it's really hard to get an appointment in under 2 weeks at my GP. So when I see her, I'm going to go through all my medication, and then she will hopefully refer me back to neurology. So on to Topiramate. I first tried it a year ago. That's when I was given it. I can't believe it's that long ago, but it was a year ago. And I was told that it was an anti-seizure medication. I hadn't heard of it. I didn't know really very much about it at all, but I started taking it. I got 2 different brands last year. One was Accord and one was Tiva. And this is applicable because I have found differences between brands, and that's something that I firstly want to let you know, is that you can maybe try different brands because you get different side effects from different brands, which doesn't actually make sense because they're all the same ingredient, but obviously somewhere along the line there's maybe more filler in one, there's maybe a different way that they make it up. It does make a difference. It made a huge difference to me, Accord and Tiva. So anyway, I got the drug. The way that Topiramate works is you start on a very low dose, so you start on 25 milligram normally, and the plan is to get you up to 100 milligrams, although some people have left me comments saying they were on 50 milligrams, but every area is different, I guess. But I was told 25 milligrams, then once the side effects have died down, 50 milligrams, then once the side effects have died down, 75 milligrams, then once the side effects have died down, 100 milligrams. I took the 25 milligrams and waited a week, and she said, you will experience tiredness. That's what she told me. I had no tiredness at all in that first week. In fact, I had the opposite. I had insomnia at night. I couldn't sleep at all, and I'm normally knocked out by my amitriptyline, which I'm also on for partly migraines, partly bladder problems. So I said, you know what, I'm not getting this tiredness, so I'm just going to up it to 50 milligrams. So I went immediately up to 50 milligrams. Still didn't get any side effects other than a lack of appetite. I think that started at 50 milligrams. And a taste change. I couldn't stand the taste of Diet Coke anymore. And I love Diet Coke. My drink of choice at the weekend is Bacardi and Diet Coke. And most days I will have a Diet Coke, the caffeine-free type, just with ice. But I couldn't stand the taste of it. It just tasted really weird. So I stopped drinking. I didn't like any alcohol, which was a good thing. And I started losing a bit of weight as well. And I did have some side effects. My mouth was really dry, my nose was really dry, and I started getting the tiredness. But I knew that the tiredness would probably pass. And I wanted to get to that high dose as soon as possible. Because at 50 milligrams last year, my headaches, it didn't touch them, basically. So I went to the doctor and she said, oh, that's fine, just go up to the 100 milligrams whenever you want. And so I think it was in like 4 or 5 weeks, I went right up to the 100 milligrams, which is a lot. You're supposed to increase it a lot slower than that, but I went up very, very quickly. I then started being bombarded with the side effects, and some of them were bearable. The tiredness was really frustrating because the insomnia went. I didn't get insomnia anymore. I would sleep through the night absolutely fine. But during the day, I'd get up, and then by 10 a.m., I'd get up at 7 a.m. By 10 a.m., I'd need to sleep. I'd be like, I actually feel like it's the middle of the night and I need to go to bed. So I'd go and lie down, and I would wake up like 2 or 3 hours later. So I thought, you know what? Let's just get past this. This will pass. And I'm lucky that I'm able to do this. But it was frustrating because I had so much to do. I was planning my dad's wedding at the time. And so I was always sort of chasing my tail, you know, because I'd wasted time sleeping. But I just thought, if it ends up working for my headaches, then great. And it was working a little bit for my headaches. I kind of felt like that's why I was putting up with the tiredness, because on an average day, I was losing time where I had to lie down because of these headaches anyway. I was having to sleep for 1 to 2 hours a day. So I might as well be sleeping a little bit more and hopefully finding a solution to my headaches, and them being side effects, I thought it would pass, which it did. The tiredness definitely got better and better the longer I was on them. And I was on them for May, June, July, August, about 4 months in total. So the other side effects, I've written them down. Lack of appetite, so I was losing weight. Taste change, things just didn't taste the same. I had cocktails with my friends. I didn't like the taste of my cocktail. Like I said, alcohol was off. That was really the only thing, that and cola. I didn't like Diet Coke anymore. My sensation of heat and cold, this was one of the ones that I found really hard to bear, because last summer was the crazy hot summer here. And I felt like I was in an oven all of the time, whether I was inside, whether I was outside. I felt like my skin was on fire, and I didn't put it down to the drugs at the time. I thought it was just the hot summer. I just couldn't bear it. I was like, this is awful. I feel ill all the time. I feel like I'm going to faint. I'm so hot. Nothing I do can cool me down. But when I eventually stopped the drugs and it was still hot, I was like, oh, okay, it's a completely different feeling. So the drugs would make me experience heat and cold very differently. I could be in the house and I could suddenly be freezing for no reason at all, and I'd need to like get in under covers, and I'd be sitting like this shivering, and it wasn't cold, but it took me, I don't know, half an hour to warm up. And then, like I said, the other times I was just unbearably hot. Like I felt like I was sitting in an oven. It was horrible. And I would get up and walk, say, from here to there, and just be like, no, I'm sweating, I'm so hot, you know. So that was one of the, there's ones that I think are mild, which is the tiredness, because I know that will pass. But the heat thing didn't seem to pass. It seemed to come on after me being on the drug for like a month. Then it started to happen, so I didn't think that was going to pass, and it was just unbearable. Blurred vision, again, I wasn't sure at the time whether it was because I was trying out contact lenses, and I wasn't sure if it was that, if I had the wrong contact lenses or whatever, but it wasn't. It was the drugs. They were making everything really, really hard to read. I can find, now I'm not on it, there are things that I can look at something and I can read it at a certain distance, but when I was on that drug, everything was blurry, and even with my glasses on, things were blurry. Indigestion, my indigestion was so bad, and I already have problems with indigestion. It's kind of typical of Ehlers-Danlos, and I'm already on 2 indigestion tablets, and so I was trying to add in some Rennies because I was constantly had heartburn, but that wasn't one of the ones that I put up there as unbearable, believe it or not. Dry eyes, nose and throat. This was unbearable, and it doesn't sound it sounds quite benign, but my nose constantly was blocked. I felt like I could never breathe properly through my nose, no matter how much I was using Vicks and all sorts of steroid sprays and whatnot, but nothing would ever give me, I could never breathe properly through my nose. So I was breathing through my mouth, which was awful because my mouth was so dry. If you've ever had a dry mouth, you'll know what it's like. It sounds like nothing. Oh, you've got a dry mouth, so what? And I was using dry mouth washes and dry mouth tablets and, you know, everything I could possibly think of. But it's just, especially when you're sleeping, I would wake up and I was struggling to breathe because my mouth was almost stuck together because I couldn't breathe through my nose. But what also happened for me was I got throat infections last year. You may remember I got three throat infections in a row, and ended up on antibiotics for one. One was viral, so it wasn't too bad, and I think did I get another course of antibiotics? Anyway, the doctor explained to me that it was from these drugs because they make your mouth dry. When you release saliva, that is what fights bacteria in your mouth and throat. But because I wasn't producing saliva, the bacteria took hold in my throat, and I had these throat infections, and they were awful throat infections. They were the worst. I've had throat infections like all my life, but these were really, this is the worst I've ever felt. It's the worst pain I've ever felt in my throat. Nothing I was doing, I was using chloroseptic sprays that I usually use, taking painkillers, nothing was killing the pain. I was crying in pain. I was lying with like a heat pad on my neck. It was just awful. So that whole dry nose, mouth, eyes, my eyes were dry, everything was dry, was an unbearable side effect as well. The final unbearable side effect for me was, it was kind of like depression. Now, I have had times in my life, I suffer with anxiety, but I haven't suffered with depression, thankfully. But I have had times in my life where I've been depressed, but I've been depressed for a reason. I haven't had clinical depression, which I believe you can get clinical depression. It can be caused by things, but you can get it just when there's no reason for it, you can just feel depressed. And that's what I felt like. Everything was making me cry, every single thing. And I had thoughts in my head, like I would be thinking so many negative things. Why didn't I'm just giving you an example that wasn't this, but why didn't my friend answer that email immediately? And I'd cry my eyes out, like over the most ridiculous things. And I felt like, I just felt down all of the time. It was horrible. And I met my friend for lunch, and I had told her I was feeling down. And I was actually feeling down about, the biggest thing that was bothering me was who was going to look after Watson on my dad's wedding day, because they had said they wanted me to take him, but I knew that I was going to be too busy to look after him, Watson, my dog. And there wasn't, anyway, it doesn't matter, but that's what I was worried about. So I met my friend for lunch, and I did not stop crying the whole lunch. And she, you know, we talk about it since and kind of laugh about it, but she was like, I've never seen you like that. And she's known me 20 years. And I think I've cried over lunch twice, maybe, in the 20 years we've known each other, 25 years actually. But I did not stop crying the whole time. Literally every single second I was crying. I was talking through tears. I was sobbing, going through bags of tissues, just every single thing we tried talking about different topics. I said, so this is just ridiculous. Like, I'm going to have to stop this drug. That was the point where I was like, I cannot go on like this, you know. The big thing as well was I was thinking, I was under stress at the time. I was stressed from my dad's wedding. I was stressed from being ill from the throat infections. I was stressed because I was still getting the headaches. It was only helping, even 100 milligrams. It was only helping very mildly. And I thought, this is not worth it. I just feel a wreck. I feel emotionally and physically a wreck. So I stopped the drug in, I think it was about August. And my dad's wedding was in in October, and I didn't stop it immediately. You can't just go from 100 milligrams to nothing. I had to go down to 75 for a week, down to 50 for a week, down to 25. So I knew that by the time my dad's wedding came, it would be out of my system and I'd just be coping with the headaches and hopefully wouldn't be depressed, because that, you know, it's a happy occasion and I had a lot to do. I put all the weight back on immediately, by the way. The weight loss didn't stick around, and neither did the lack of appetite, actually, because I just found replacements. I found that I actually liked Diet Pepsi. I didn't like Diet Coke, but I could drink Diet Pepsi, so I did manage to replace those things. That shows you it's all about your mindset, you know. So that, I kind of was like, that's it, I'm done with them. Like I said, I had different experiences with, when I was on Topiramate as a brand, the weight loss was better and I felt the tiredness wasn't as bad. But when I was on the one called Accord, I got more tiredness and no lack of appetite at all. So I used to try and get Tiva because I felt like I was less tired on them and there was more of an appetite suppressant in them. Whether or not that works for everybody, I don't know. But I basically had wiped my hands of them. But then, of course, my headaches come back, and it's like anything, when you're experiencing it, you're like, oh, perhaps I should have stuck with it, perhaps I should have stayed on them longer. And so I said to my husband around about Christmas, I said, I'm thinking of trying them again. I said, because I've still got a big stash. And I said, I feel like I didn't increase them slowly. So that was my number one mistake. Within a month, I was up to 100 milligrams. I said, so I feel like I should try again, but do it really, really slowly and wait until the side effects have passed before I increase. I said, and secondly, I was very emotional last year because of this worry about my dog and where he would go on the wedding day, and even just the stress of the wedding. And I said, maybe I was just having a breakdown and it was nothing to do with the drugs. So I feel like I should give them a second shot. So he didn't really want me to, because I saw you upset all the time and I don't want that. But he agreed, let's give it one more shot. And so in January, I started taking them again. And we're now, was it January? No, maybe February. I started taking them again, and I started at 25 milligrams, and I said, I'm just going to stay on 25 milligrams until this tiredness gets better, until the side effects have passed, the ones that are unbearable, and then I'll go up to 50, and then I'll do the same thing. I've never got past 50. I stayed on 25 milligrams until the tiredness got better, and then increased to 50 milligrams. This time I got no lack of appetite, strangely, so I don't know whether it's something that, because my body's used to the drug, because it's had it before, that's a symptom that you just get when you first take it. But absolutely no lack of appetite at all. A slight taste change with the cola, and I changed over to drinking Pepsi again instead of cola, but other than that, no difference, which I was actually disappointed with, because I said to him, if nothing else, I said I will at least lose a bit of weight. But no, that didn't happen this time. I have no idea why, and I tried both Accord and Tiva. The tiredness did happen, but it passed after a few weeks. And on the 25 milligrams, I didn't have any of the depression. I didn't feel emotional at all. I was like, this is okay, this is fine. I'll go up to 50 milligrams. I didn't have the heat and cold thing, which these were my kind of deal breakers. But then after a couple of weeks of being on 50 milligrams, I started to get tearful again. I started to just feel down about everything and kind of obsessed with negative things. Like I have been obsessed with, you know, Mike from Love Island. If you're in the UK, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. He killed himself, and I have been obsessed with that. Like, why? He was such a good looking guy, had so much going with him for him. How could he be so lonely? And I wish I could have been in the park and talked him out of it, and because it's just such a waste of a life, and how lonely he must have been, and to do something so horrific. And there was a lot of things like that, and I was getting obsessed with them, and just like, you know, why would somebody not want to be here? And I was like, well, you know what, it's a horrible world. I was thinking about all the animal cruelty, and just like, this is not a nice world, and just feeling generally negative about things. And I said to Kev, I think that drug is doing its thing again, you know. And also the heat, it wasn't that hot a day, and I started to feel like I was in an oven. And I said to Kev, I can't be doing with this anymore. It's just no good, because those side effects didn't actually come on until I started at 50 milligrams. And so I spoke to the pharmacist a couple of times, and she was saying if there's side effects that come on after you've been on the drug for a while, it's less likely that they're going to disappear. Whereas if you get a side effect straight away, in 90% of people, they will disappear after a couple of months. So I think that's useful information for you guys to know. And she said, but it doesn't, you should still stay on them for another 2 to 3 months and see, it could pass. But I thought, there's no way I can stand another 2 to 3 months like this. However, what did happen this time was it did work on my headache. I was on holiday, I didn't have headaches. I felt just so much more clear-headed. I still had the tiredness from increasing the dose, and that would last, 2 or 3 weeks. But the headaches were nowhere near as bad. So that's interesting to me, because it shows you that even though they don't know why anti-seizure medication works for headaches, and it's really migraines that they mostly work for. So again, I didn't have much hope for them working for me, because migraines I don't get very often. It's daily I get cervicogenic headaches, but the doctor had said try it for that anyway. But it definitely worked. And what I find interesting about it is my brother is epileptic, so that's obviously a family gene. But also I can't remember the name for it. I used to think it was cataplexy, but it's not. I have something that is related to seizures where I get paralysed in my sleep. It's if I sleep on my back, or if I sleep during the day, sometimes I get it, where I feel like I can't move and I have hallucinations and things. It doesn't happen that often, thank goodness. My dad has that as well. I think it is just called sleep paralysis. But there is a possible link between that and seizures. So I found it really interesting that this anti-seizure medication was working for my headaches, and that's why I persevered with it for so long. People that I have, when I've talked about it on here, it has been mentioned many times about gabapentin and other anti-seizure medication. But there's a couple of things. Firstly, I have tried gabapentin very briefly. This does not work for me, doesn't do good things for me at all. I studied gabapentin a lot in the hospital because we had a lot of studies on gabapentin. I also have 2 people that were very close to me that had terrifying experiences on gabapentin. One of them became suicidal. So just not a drug I'm interested in trying again. Didn't get on with it, not going to try it again. There are other anti-seizure medications that I could try, but they're not ones that the GP can prescribe, or my GP won't prescribe them. They're ones that I would have to discuss with the neurologist. So that may be something in the future. But my experience in trying classes of drugs is that if you don't get on with the type of drug it is, that it doesn't matter which one you use, it's not going to work for you. So for example, I've tried what's called anticholinogenic tablets for my bladder, and I've tried 3 different types of anticholinergics, and they all gave me the same side effects, and they all worked the same way. And so I don't feel that I'd be overly positive about trying another anti-seizure medication. But I probably would try one more, to be honest. I wouldn't completely rule it out, I just wouldn't be that positive about it. What the GP would like me to try me on now before I go to neurology is something called propranolol, which is a blood pressure medication. And ironically, I'm on blood pressure medication, so I would assume they would tweak that and I would be on propranolol instead. However, I was put on propranolol in my 20s for anxiety, and I got palpitations from it. So I'm not going to try that. That's where I'm currently at. I've kind of flip-flopped a bit and gone, oh, I should give it a try at least. This is 20 years later, maybe I wouldn't get palpitations. But I already have problems with palpitations and an ectopic heartbeat and whatnot, and I just don't want to add to that. So I'm going off on a bit of a tangent there about other drugs that I potentially am going to try, just because I know that it will be in the comments, you know, what's happening now, or have you tried this, have you tried that. In my migraine video, which I'll link for you, it tells you every single thing that I have tried. Like somebody left a comment saying, oh, you should try amitriptyline, that'll work. I'm on amitriptyline, I'm on 40 milligrams of amitriptyline for my bladder, and it has been suggested for my headaches, but it doesn't do anything for them at all, unfortunately. So that's not one that, I can't really do anything about that, I'm on it already, you know. So I hope that this has been interesting to you, or I hope that this has been useful for you if you're in my situation, or you're thinking about taking this drug and, you know, wondering about it. I think it's really good to be aware of the potential side effects. I would say you're supposed to drink a lot of water when you're on Topiramate. It says that in the leaflet, but it's not something the GP told me, and it's not something I remembered to do. So I would really highly recommend drinking a lot of water to avoid getting throat infections. That will help. the tiredness may pass. Obviously everybody has different experiences of it, and I know from the comments on that last video that some people are having positive experiences with it. It worked for my headaches, so I would say give it a go if you have been unsure, because you might not get the same side effects as me and it might work for your headaches. So I would definitely recommend giving it a go. There's nothing there that you can't, you know, stop fairly quickly if those side effects happen to you and are unbearable. And I'd love to hear anybody's experiences with this drug. Please leave it in the comments below, because I think that's helpful to everybody. Like I said, my next move is I have an appointment in 3 weeks at the GP, a double appointment to sit down and go through my medication and tell her, no, Topiramate is an absolute no. Don't want to try propranolol, so please can you refer me back to neurology and take it from there. I've also got a physio appointment tomorrow, and that normally helps because she does a bit of sort of manipulation and gives me some exercises and whatnot, so that should help as well. Yeah, I think that's everything. Thank you so much for watching. Best of luck with your journey to get rid of headaches, wherever you may be. It's a horrible thing. It really is awful. I didn't have a headache until I was 33. You know, before that I'd heard people saying I've got a headache. I'd never had a headache. But now it's a completely different story. So 33 and I'm now 40, nearly 47. So it's a long time I've been struggling with these headaches, but that's everything for now. Thanks again for watching, and I'll speak to you soon.